My name is Celine. For 3 years I believed I was building a life with a man who claimed to love me, protect me, and dream with me. His name is Adrian. He had the kind of voice that could convince you to step off a ledge, not because he pushed but because he smiled and said, "Trust me. I will catch you." The night everything began unraveling was not unusual. We were sitting on the sofa, our dinner plates still warm, the scent of roasted garlic filling the room. Adrian reached for my hand with that polished calm of his and said, "I need to go away for a few days. Business trip. Meetings in another city." The word business has weight when spoken by someone you trust. It makes you nod even when your chest tightens. I nodded. I even smiled, pretending to be proud that he was in demand. But inside something tugged at me. Not a scream, just a whisper. The kind of whisper you can ignore if you want peace more than truth. I asked simple questions. When will you be back? Which hotel? He kissed my forehead instead of answering fully. I will send you the details. Just focus on your work. Do not worry. That "do not worry" had become his signature. It sounded like care, but it carried a quiet command. Do not ask. Do not press. Do not disrupt the story he wanted me to believe. I wanted to obey. I wanted my life to stay neat. But I could not silence the whisper. Not this time. The night before his trip, I noticed his suitcase half-packed. Crisp shirts. Tie I had never seen before. A fragrance bottle that was new, sitting on top of folded clothes like a secret he had not buried yet. I asked lightly, "When did you buy this?" He smiled too quickly. It was a gift from a client. Something in the way he avoided my eyes told me the bottle was not the only new thing in his life. Still I said nothing. I let him pack. I let him kiss me goodbye. He promised to call each night. He did call. Always brief. Always from somewhere with noise in the background, as if the world itself was rushing to cover his lies. But silence has a way of screaming when you are alone. On the third night of his trip, I sat at the kitchen table scrolling through photos a friend had posted from a cafe downtown. In the corner of one picture, blurred but unmistakable, I saw Adrian. He was not 200 miles away. He was here. My hands went cold. I zoomed in until the pixels blurred. It was him. His shoulders. His tie. That same new fragrance bottle sitting on the cafe table. The cap glinting under the light. I tried to breathe. I tried to reason. Maybe he returned early. Maybe he stopped for coffee. But if he was back, why had he not come home? Why had he not told me? I called his phone. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. That whisper inside me was no longer a whisper. It was a bell. Loud. Relentless. I did not sleep that night. I waited for him. At 3 in the morning the door opened. Adrian walked in, quiet as if he hoped the walls would not notice. He froze when he saw me awake. Then he smiled too wide. "You are up late," he said, dropping his suitcase as if it weighed nothing. I looked at the bag. The tags were untouched, like they had been placed for show. The clothes inside were neatly folded, as if no one had ever worn them. "Long trip?" I asked. My voice was steady. "Exhausting," he said. "Glad to be home." He leaned down to kiss me. I turned my face. His lips brushed air. He froze, sensing the fracture. That night I knew something deeper than a missed call or a blurred photo was at play. I knew the man who promised to catch me was the same man who had been standing on another ledge, holding another woman's hand. I did not have proof yet. Only suspicion. But suspicion can be sharper than proof when it cuts sleep from your nights. I lay in bed, eyes wide, his body breathing steady beside me. And I whispered to myself a promise he could not hear. "I will find out where you really were, Adrian. I will find out who you were with. And when I do, you will not see the ending coming." The next morning, sunlight spilled across the floor as if nothing had changed. Adrian whistled while making coffee, like a man who had nothing to hide. I watched him pour sugar, stir, sip. His rhythm was smooth, too smooth, as if he rehearsed it. I asked, "How was the hotel?" He did not blink. "Functional. Nothing special." I tilted my head. "Which one was it again?" He picked up his phone. "Oh, one of those chain places. Hard to remember. They all look the same." That answer was not careless. It was deliberate. The way a liar trims his story so there are no corners to grip. When he left for work, I stayed behind. The suitcase still sat by the door. I unzipped it. Shirts folded perfectly, tags tucked just right. No scent of travel, no crumpled receipts, no hotel toiletries. It looked less like luggage and more like a stage prop. I opened his briefcase next. Inside was his laptop, charger, and one envelope. Plain white. My pulse quickened. I slid it open. Inside was a restaurant receipt. Date 2 nights ago. Location. The same cafe where I had seen him in that photo. 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine, 1 dessert. Paid in cash. He had not been away. He had been here, dining with someone who was not me. That was my first proof. Thin but sharp enough to draw blood. I tucked everything back into place and sat at the table, shaking. It is one thing to suspect. It is another to see the numbers, the date, the wine. Proof is colder than suspicion because it does not leave room for hope. That day at work I could not focus. My colleagues asked if I was tired. I lied, said yes, I had not been sleeping well. They did not know that my marriage was unraveling in whispers and receipts. When Adrian came home that night, I studied him like a stranger. He leaned down to kiss me. I let him. His lips were warm, familiar, but I tasted the distance between us. He told me stories about meetings and contracts, words polished like coins. I nodded, pretending to listen, while inside I was already planning. I started small, checking his phone when he showered. He guarded it less than I expected, as if he believed my trust was unshakable. His messages were clean. Too clean. Almost curated. No personal chats, no late-night texts, only work threads and reminders. It was the absence of mess that told me the truth. No one lives without digital fingerprints. Someone had been erased. So I dug deeper. I remembered that he sometimes left his tablet in the study. That night, after he fell asleep, I powered it on. His email app was synced. My hands trembled as I typed his password. The second try worked. The inbox glowed. And there it was. Not a love letter. Not a confession. A simple calendar event. Title: Dinner with Clara. Location: Downtown restaurant. Date: last week. Clara. The name sat on the screen like a stone dropped in water. I had never heard of her. Not a colleague. Not a friend he had ever mentioned. I clicked further. More entries. Clara's name repeated like an echo. Dinners. Lunches. Anniversary written once, bold, circled in red. Anniversary. My chest tightened. Anniversary meant history. Anniversary meant intimacy. I sat frozen, the glow of the tablet painting my face in blue. My husband did not just lie about a business trip. He had another calendar. Another woman. Another life. The next morning I tested him. Over breakfast I asked casually, "Who is Clara?" His spoon clinked too hard against the bowl. He recovered quickly. "Client. She handles procurement." "Why?" I forced a smile. "Just curious. You mentioned her name in your sleep." He laughed too loud. "You must have misheard." But I had not misheard. I had read it. Bold, red, unerasable. From that moment, the whisper inside me turned into a steady drum. Find Clara. See her. Know the truth. So I began my quiet investigation. I watched his patterns. He always left on Thursday evenings with the excuse of late meetings. He always wore the same cologne he claimed was from a client. He always came back past midnight, smelling faintly of wine and perfume I did not own. I tracked the addresses from his receipts. One led me to a small restaurant tucked on a corner, romantic lights strung above the patio. I drove there one night, parked across the street, and waited. At 7:30, Adrian walked in. His stride was confident, his shirt crisp. And then she followed. A woman with dark hair pulled into a braid, wearing a dress that shimmered under the streetlight. Clara. They did not sit like colleagues. They sat like lovers. Their hands brushed across the table. He leaned close, whispering into her ear the way he used to whisper into mine. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. Rage surged, hot and raw, but I forced myself to stay still. If I stormed inside, I would have a scene. If I stayed quiet, I would have evidence. I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo. Adrian smiling. Clara laughing. Their hands entwined over wine glasses. Proof number 2. Stronger. Unshakable. I drove home with the photo burning on my screen, my heart pounding. That night, I did not confront him. Not yet. I tucked the photo away along with the receipt, along with the calendar screenshots. One by one I was building a case. Because if Adrian wanted to live two lives, I was going to make sure both came crashing down. And I knew exactly where to start. I did not sleep. I lay in the dark and replayed the photo until the pixels felt carved into my eyes. Adrian and Clara. Wine. Hands. Laughter that used to be mine. At dawn I made tea and opened my laptop. If there was another life, it would leave a trail. People always think they can sweep sand back into the ocean. They forget the tide brings it back. I began with the restaurant receipt. The last 4 digits of the check matched a merchant account. I mapped the time it was paid to his calendar. The event title was Client Dinner. The guest field was empty. That emptiness felt like a confession. I searched Clara next. Her name was too simple to stand alone, so I used the location. I tried the words Clara, procurement, and our city. A professional profile appeared. Dark braid. Calm smile. Job title that sounded like polished glass. I read every line. She listed suppliers, conferences, training certificates. No personal details. Clean but not curated like Adrian's phone. Honest clean. Then I clicked a tiny link tucked near the bottom. Volunteer work. A community center newsletter opened. There was a photo from a charity gala. Clara in a silver dress. Next to her stood Adrian. Not my Adrian. Not the gentle husband I had chosen. This Adrian wore the practiced posture of a man who knows he is being watched. His hand rested on Clara's waist. The caption read their names. Together. My mouth went dry. I saved the image and kept going. Public records are boring until they are not. I searched the county clerk site. I typed Clara's last name. I narrowed the dates to the past 5 years. My breath caught when the screen changed. A marriage license record. Groom, Adrian. Bride, Clara. Date, 2 years after Adrian and I were married. 2 marriages. 1 man. 1 city. No business trip. No honesty. I printed the record with shaking hands. The paper felt too light for a truth so heavy. I needed to know where they lived. Adrian often claimed he stayed near the airport on long meeting days. I checked our joint bank account. Small recurring charges appeared every first of the month. A building name I did not recognize. I searched it. It was an apartment complex across the river. Not near the airport. Close to that restaurant with the romantic lights. I drove there in daylight as if going to a doctor's appointment. Normal. Casual. Prepared. The building was modern and quiet, with clean glass and a lobby that smelled like lemon and new carpet. I sat across the street and watched. People came and went with grocery bags and gym clothes and lives I envied for their simplicity. Then I saw him. Adrian walked out through the revolving door with a paper bag in his hand. He looked rested. He looked at ease. He wore the sweater I had wrapped one winter in tissue and ribbon. He was not alone. Clara came after him, keys in her palm, a scarf tied at her throat. She kissed his cheek. He carried her bag to the car with the practiced care of a husband who has done it 100 times. I filmed 30 seconds. I did not cry. My tears were done making sense of him. I went home and opened a new folder on my laptop. I named it Truth. I placed the marriage record inside. I placed the video inside. I placed the charity photo and the restaurant photo and the receipt and the calendar screenshots. I backed the folder up twice. Next, I needed to see what story he told Clara. A man who builds 2 lives tells 2 scripts. Somewhere the pages would not match. That afternoon I found a clue by accident. A postcard sat on our hallway table under the junk mail. A watercolor of a small coastal town. No stamp. Hand-delivered. On the back in neat writing were 2 lines. Happy anniversary, my love. Saturday. Our place. No name signed. No address listed. An assumption that the receiver would know. The handwriting was not mine. It was not Adrian's either. I turned the card in my hands and noticed a faint gold imprint on the edge. The name of a boutique hotel in a city 1 hour away. I had been there once for a work retreat. The card was from their gift shop. Anniversary. Saturday. Our place. I checked Adrian's shared calendar. Saturday was blocked. Title: Overnight site visit. Location blank. I checked Clara's volunteer page again. There was a small banner for an upcoming donor brunch. Same city. Same weekend. The coincidence was too exact to ignore. My plan took shape in clean steps. Call the hotel. Confirm a reservation under his name. If confirmed, ask for a dinner time. Book a room for myself under my own name. Arrive early. Watch. Wait. Then choose when and how the truth would walk into the room. I called the hotel. The clerk was polite and brisk. When I asked if there was a reservation for Adrian on Saturday, she paused, then said yes, a weekend package for 2. Dinner for 2 at 8. Champagne on arrival. My throat tightened. Thank you, I said, and booked my own room for the same night. I requested a floor above theirs and a table near the back wall of the restaurant with a clean line of sight. I hung up and sat still. The silence in our house felt different now. Not empty. Charged. Like a stage before the curtain. At dusk, Adrian came home with tulips. He kissed my forehead and said he had to fly out Saturday. I touched the petals and asked him to be safe. My voice did not shake. My heart was a drum. That night I folded simple clothes into a small bag and hid it in the trunk of my car. I printed copies of the records and tucked them into a folder. I added a slim notebook and a pen. I placed my grandmother's ring on my finger. It steadied me. Friday moved like a slow clock. He went to work. I prepared. I called my oldest friend, but I stopped before the second ring and ended the call. Part of me wanted to be held by words. Part of me needed to hold myself first. Saturday morning, he left with his carry-on. He wore the same sweater he had worn when I watched him leave Clara's building. He hugged me, promised to text from the gate, and walked out with the ease of a man who believes in his own fiction. Minutes later, a text pinged my phone. Boarding now. A lie typed with practiced fingers. I waited 10 minutes. Then I picked up my keys, locked the door, and drove toward the coastal city printed in gold on the postcard. The highway unfurled in a long gray ribbon. The sky was a pale winter blue, thin and distant. I did not turn on music. I drove in silence, planning each step again and again until it felt like choreography. At the edge of the city, the hotel rose like a sketch from a travel magazine. White columns. Balconies. A line of small flags shifting in the wind. I checked in under my name. I took the stairs, not the elevator, because I needed air and a rhythm to follow. My room was quiet and bright. I set the folder on the desk. I opened the curtains and watched the courtyard below. At 7:40, a black car pulled up. The driver opened the rear door. Adrian stepped out first. Then Clara. She wore a dress the color of deep wine. He wore the suit I had picked for a promotion dinner 2 years ago. They walked inside, hand in hand, toward the restaurant with the soft lights. Picked up my folder. I smoothed my hair. I took one long breath. And then I left my room to meet my husband's secret wife. The carpet in the hallway muffled my steps as I walked toward the restaurant. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, to retreat to the safety of ignorance. But safety was a lie. Ignorance was a cage. The lobby glowed with warm light. Guests in evening clothes floated past me, laughing, carrying flutes of champagne. I moved through them like a ghost, my folder clutched against my ribs. I reached the restaurant entrance at exactly 7:50. Through the glass wall I saw them. Adrian sat across from Clara at a candlelit table near the center. A bottle of champagne rested in a silver bucket, sweating in the glow. He leaned forward, eyes soft, hands folded around hers. The picture was so familiar and so foreign that my chest ached. I could not walk in yet. To confront them head-on, unprepared, would be noise without impact. I needed precision. I retreated to the bar across the lobby, ordered sparkling water, and slipped onto a stool where I could see the restaurant doors reflected in a mirror. The bartender poured quietly, his face polite and blank. My hands trembled as I sipped. I pulled out my phone and opened a draft email. Recipient Mira. Not a friend, not a relative, my lawyer. She was the one person who knew pieces of my unease before tonight. The subject line. Saturday confirmation. The body. In possession of records. Witnessing in progress. Will forward evidence after conclusion. I saved the draft but did not send. Not yet. I wanted her to see the whole arc, not fragments. At 8:10, a familiar voice whispered behind me. You look like you are watching a chessboard. I turned. It was Elise, my college roommate, now a journalist who covered corporate fraud. We had not spoken in months, maybe longer, but I had sent her a message that morning with no context. Hotel Coastal City. Tonight. I may need eyes. She had replied with a single word. Coming. She slid onto the stool beside me, ordered tea, and lowered her voice. Is that him? I nodded toward the restaurant. Her eyes followed. When she saw Adrian and Clara, her expression hardened. 2 lives, she murmured. Classic. You ready? I thought I was, I said. But now. She touched my arm steady. Do not confront empty-handed. Do not give him a chance to reframe. You collect. Then you strike where the story cannot be twisted. Her words anchored me. This was not just my heartbreak. This was a case. And I had been building the file for weeks. I pulled the folder from my bag and showed her the records. The marriage license, the bank statement, the video. Elise scanned them with quick, sharp eyes. This is enough to ruin him legally, she said. But you want more. I want undeniable, I whispered. I want the moment he cannot talk himself out of. She leaned back thinking. Then she smiled, a small fox smile. Record the anniversary toast. Couples always reveal themselves when they think no one else is listening. She handed me a slim device from her purse. Press once. Clear audio. Battery lasts hours. I slipped it into my clutch with fingers that felt steadier now. Together we watched as the waiter delivered entrees. Adrian raised his glass. I pressed the recorder on. His voice carried faintly across the lobby, muffled but distinct. To us, he said, smiling at Clara. To 5 years of marriage. And to the years ahead. The words hit like a blade. 5 years. He had stood in a chapel with me 7 years ago. Clara laughed softly. You always make me believe in forever. I forced my breath to remain even as Elise scribbled the quote into her notebook. Evidence. Clean. Sharp. At 8:45, Clara excused herself to the powder room. Adrian stayed seated, scrolling his phone, the picture of domestic ease. Elise nudged me. This is your chance. You want her version, not his. Find her before she returns to him. My pulse hammered. And what do I say? The truth, she said. But only enough to make her talk. I rose, legs stiff, and walked toward the corridor that led to the restrooms. The air smelled faintly of roses and lemon polish. My reflection in the glass door looked strange, pale but intent. Clara stood at the sink, adjusting her scarf. She looked up when I entered. For a moment she smiled politely, the way strangers do in shared spaces. Then she saw the folder in my hand. Her smile faltered. Can I help you? She asked, voice calm but wary. I stepped closer, heart racing. You do not know me, but I know your husband. Her brow furrowed. I think you are mistaken. I opened the folder just enough for her to see the marriage license copy. Her name. Adrian's name. Her face drained of color. That is impossible, she whispered. No, I said softly. It is the truth. Because he is also my husband. Her hand trembled against the sink. For a moment I thought she might faint. Instead she gripped the counter and stared at me with wide, burning eyes. What do you want from me? She whispered. Before I could answer, footsteps echoed down the corridor. Heavy, quick. Adrian's voice, closer than I expected. Clara? You all right? He was coming. And I was still in the powder room, face to face with the secret wife who had just learned she was not the only one. The sound of Adrian's shoes striking the tile grew sharper. Each step echoed down the corridor like a countdown. Clara's eyes darted toward the door. I could see the panic tightening her jaw, the tremor running through her hand. If he found us together now, the careful strategy one had built would collapse into a chaotic fight. I lowered my voice to a whisper. Not now. Not here. If you want answers, meet me in the lobby after dinner. 10 o'clock. Please. For a long second, Clara did not move. Then she gave the smallest nod, her lips pressed tight, and turned back toward the mirror as if she were only fixing her hair. I slipped out through the side door just as Adrian entered. His voice carried behind me. Everything okay, love? I kept walking, forcing my breath to remain steady. At the bar, Elise raised her eyebrows. I gave a tiny nod. She understood. We had an ally now. The plan was changing. It was no longer just about exposing Adrian. It was about aligning with the woman who had unknowingly lived my shadowed life. When Clara rejoined Adrian at the table, I stayed hidden, recorder running. He smiled at her, poured more champagne, leaned across the table with that easy charm that once disarmed me. He looked like a man fully at home, a man who believed his walls would never crack. But I had heard the tremor in Clara's breath. The crack was there. It was spreading. At 9:30, Elise leaned toward me. We need to be ready for the pivot. If she meets you at 10, you cannot just trade wounds. You need a stage. Somewhere he cannot spin the story. I swallowed hard. Where? She smiled faintly. Where he feels most powerful. That is where the fall hurts most. The idea chilled me. His anniversary dinner was almost over. Soon he would raise his final toast, maybe step onto that tiny stage at the center of the restaurant, thanking staff and guests with the confidence of a man who thinks he owns the night. If I wanted maximum impact, that stage could become my weapon. But I needed Clara to stand beside me. Without her, it would look like bitterness. With her, it would look like truth. At 9:50, I walked to the ladies' lounge again, pretending calm. Clara was waiting this time. She looked different, her hands clenched, her eyes red-rimmed but burning with focus. You were not lying, she said, voice low. I checked the marriage license number while he stepped out for a call. It is real. You and I share a husband. The words cut through me like glass. Still I nodded. I am sorry, I whispered. She shook her head sharply. Do not be sorry. Be ready. I blinked. You want to help me? I want to end this, she said. 5 years, Nova. I thought I knew who he was. Now I know I was sleeping next to a stranger. We looked at each other, two women bound by betrayal. And in that moment I saw something in her eyes. Not weakness, not defeat, but resolve. Elise appeared at the door. They are about to cut the cake, she whispered. The three of us stepped back into the lobby. Through the glass, Adrian stood at the center of the restaurant, a waiter holding a small tiered cake with sparklers glowing. Guests clapped as he lifted his glass. His voice rose, smooth and practiced. To love, he said. To the woman who makes me whole. The crowd cheered. He kissed Clara's cheek, and for the cameras it looked perfect. Clara's hand tightened around my wrist. Now, she whispered. The plan crystallized. Elise would handle the tech. She had already connected the recorder to the restaurant's sound system under the guise of helping staff with music. At my signal, she would play Adrian's words. To 5 years of marriage. Every lie amplified. But the power would not be in the recording. It would be in our presence. 2 women stepping forward. 2 rings catching the light. 2 truths converging. At 10 sharp, Elise squeezed my shoulder. Ready. My chest rose and fell in steady rhythm. I looked at Clara. She gave a firm nod. We stepped toward the doors. My heels clicked against the marble. The crowd's laughter swelled, oblivious. Adrian raised his glass again, smiling wide, soaking in the glow of his double life. I pushed the door open. The sound of the restaurant rushed over me like a tide. Adrian turned his head at the movement. For an instant, his grin faltered when he saw me standing there, dressed in the deep green silk he had once called his favorite. His eyes widened, and then Clara stepped in beside me. The room gasped, voices rising like wind through trees. Cameras shifted. Guests froze. Adrian's glass shook in his hand. His lips parted as if to speak, and just then Elise pressed play. His own voice filled the restaurant, loud and undeniable. To us. To 5 years of marriage. The crowd went silent. All eyes snapped back to him. And I knew. The night he thought belonged to him had just turned into ours. His voice filled the room. To us. To 5 years of marriage. The recording ended. Silence followed. Adrian's smile faltered, then snapped back into place. He grabbed the mic. Everyone, small mix-up with the audio. Please enjoy the cake. He reached for Clara's hand. She did not move. I stepped beside her. 2 women. 2 rings. 1 husband. Adrian laughed too loudly. Ridiculous. She's a former colleague obsessed with me. My real wife has been patient with her nonsense. A murmur swept the tables. Some guests frowned. Others lifted their phones. I lifted my voice. I am not a colleague. I am his wife. Married on a Thursday in a courthouse by the river. Clara met his eyes. And I am his wife. Married on a Saturday in my mother's garden. The room froze. Adrian pushed on. Impossible. 2 marriages. A cruel joke. He signaled to security. They started toward us. Elise appeared, envelope in hand. Plan B, she whispered. Inside were copies of the marriage certificates. The restaurant manager stepped up nervously. You cannot distribute papers in the dining room. If you must do it in the lobby. Fine, I said. Guests followed us out. A circle formed in the marble lobby. Chandeliers glowed. The fountain hummed. Adrian lingered near the doorway, still smiling as if he could hold the room by will alone. I opened the envelope. 2 certificates. 2 seals. Same groom's name. Different dates. Different cities. Truth undeniable. Gasp spread. Adrian snapped. Anyone can fake those. Elise raised her phone. County records are public. Anyone can look it up. Clara stepped forward. Adrian, where were you on the first Saturday of April 2 years ago? He answered too quickly. Conference in New York. Her voice cut sharp. You were in my backyard. Wearing a ring. The crowd shifted again. Security hesitated. The manager looked helpless. I lifted one certificate high so the seal caught the light. Adrian lunged, seizing my wrist. The envelope slipped. The paper skidded across marble and caught under a stand. The seal began to tear. Gasps rose. His grip tightened. Proof was seconds from ruin. Then Clara slipped off her ring, set it on the stand beside the paper, and said in a voice that carried to the mezzanine, Adrian, tell them which wife you plan to take home tonight. The lobby went silent. His mouth opened, and then the chandelier lights flickered, and the room went dark. The chandelier lights sputtered back after only a few seconds, but the pause was long enough. Guests had pulled out their phones. Screens glowed in the dim, catching Adrian's frozen face from every angle. When the lights returned, the room had changed. He was no longer in control. He stood at the center of a circle, breathing hard, eyes darting between me, Clara, and the evidence on the marble floor. I bent and picked up the torn certificate, smoothing the crease. The seal was intact. Clara held her ring steady, glinting in the light. Adrian tried again. His voice was higher now, thinner. This is theater. She is trying to ruin my career. Clara, you know me. Nova is desperate, jealous. I cut in. Jealous of what? A double life you could not even keep straight? I brought proof. Clara has proof. The counties have proof. Clara held up her phone. She had already pulled the public record from the county website. Right here, she said, showing the seal, the date, the judge's signature. It is official. The room reacted. Whispers. Gasps. Someone muttered. How many wives does he have? Another said. Both of them? At the same time? Adrian's jaw clenched. He tried to shout over them. Do not listen. These are bitter women. Elise stepped forward. Calm, deliberate. No. These are 2 wives. With legal documents. And you, Adrian, signed both. She lifted her phone and pressed record. Say it. Deny it here under witness. He glared. He opened his mouth, then shut it. The silence said more than words could. Clara's shoulders squared. Adrian, do you remember our honeymoon? You left early for a conference. I believed you. Where were you really? His lips pressed tight. He had no answer. I followed. Do you remember, Adrian, telling me you had to work late every Tuesday? I believed you. Where were you? The crowd leaned in. 2 questions. 2 silences. Finally, he snapped. Fine. I made mistakes. But marriage is complicated. No, I said, my voice cutting through the air. Marriage is not complicated. Lies are. Phones recorded every second. He saw it. He knew it. Panic flickered in his eyes. The restaurant manager cleared his throat. Sir, you need to leave. Now. I will not, Adrian barked. This is my celebration. Clara stepped closer to me, standing side by side. No, Adrian, she said coldly. This is our reckoning. He lunged again, but security intercepted, firm hands on his arms. He struggled, but the fight drained fast. He looked around, searching for allies. None came. The junior analyst from my office, who had once laughed at his jokes, whispered behind their hands. Elise held the camera steady. Guests shook their heads, disappointment settling like dust. As they dragged him toward the doors, Clara raised her voice. Adrian, which anniversary were you planning to spend tonight? Mine? Or hers? He twisted once more, but no words came. The doors shut behind him. The sound echoed through the marble lobby like a gavel. Silence held for a long moment. Then whispers swelled again. 2 wives. Both betrayed. He is finished. I turned to Clara. Her eyes were wet but steady. We are not enemies, I said softly. We are survivors. She nodded. For the first time, a small grim smile curved her lips. The night was not over. The fallout had only begun. But one truth had finally landed, undeniable, in front of every witness. And Adrian could no longer control the story. The doors closed behind Adrian, and silence dropped over the restaurant. Then whispers burst like sparks. Phones were lifted, screens glowing. Everyone had seen it. The manager came quickly, expression tense. Please come with me. He guided Clara and me through the crowd into a side lounge, dimmer and quieter. Elise followed close, her steps sharp, protective. Inside, the manager placed water on the table. Your bill is waived, he said. Security will keep him out. Cameras cover every corner. If you need the footage, it will be preserved. Elise nodded, already typing. Clara sat down, staring at her wedding ring as if it had turned to glass. With shaking hands, she slid it off and set it between us. I keep hearing the way he said my name, she whispered. So smooth. As if he never said yours. I leaned toward her. Let the record speak. Not his voice. Not ours. The record. Elise perched on a chair arm. I have asked guests to airdrop videos. The drive is filling already. Mara will file preservation orders tomorrow. Clara's phone lit with Adrian's name. She let it ring. My own buzzed with unknown numbers. Elise shook her head. No replies. Not one. The restaurant staff returned one by one. A hostess who had seen him rehearse with 2 rings. A server who noticed how he introduced Claire as his wife, me as his colleague. A bartender who had caught his smirk while pocketing receipts. Elise wrote every word down. Your statement matters, she told each of them. Clara pressed her palms together. I just wanted a home, she murmured. You will still have one, I told her. Just not with him in the doorway. Beyond the lounge walls, laughter rose then fell, brittle, not joyful. Guests filed out in uneasy groups, whispering. The truth was traveling faster than Adrian could run. Elise handed us each a printed checklist. Before we leave, turn off location sharing. Screenshot recent bank activity. Photograph the ring and the torn certificate. Email copies to yourselves and forward them to Mara. Then stop. He will try to bait you. Do not give him words to twist. Clara almost laughed, a sharp sound through her tears. You thought of everything. No, Elise said. I thought of one thing. Control belongs to truth. We worked in silence. Tap, click, send. The ring glittered once under the lamp before disappearing into a file. A knock at the door broke the rhythm. The hostess stepped in. There is someone here asking for you, she said carefully. We are not receiving him, Elise said instantly. It is not him. The hostess hesitated. It is a woman. And then she stepped aside. A stranger entered, breathless, clutching a small purse. Her eyes darted between us. Clara still pale, me still rigid, Elise steady as stone. The woman swallowed hard. My name is Rowan, she whispered. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded paper that shook in her hand. A marriage certificate, stamped with a different county seal. I saw the video. I came straight from the airport. Her voice broke. Adrian is my husband too. The air snapped tight. Clara gripped the edge of her chair. I felt the world tilt, then steady. Rowan's eyes filled. I thought I was the only one. Elise rose slowly, phone ready. Please sit, she said gently. Your name belongs on the record too. The door clicked shut behind Rowan. 3 wives now sat in one room. The evidence was multiplying. The lies were crumbling. And outside, the city waited for what we would do next. Morning light can be cruel. It shows you what the night refused to hide. When I opened my curtains, the city looked the same, but my life was no longer what it had been. My phone glowed with notifications stacked higher than I had ever seen. Missed calls from Adrian, from numbers I did not recognize, from mutual friends demanding answers. And then the headlines. Double life exposed at anniversary dinner. Man confronted by 2 wives and counting. Videos had traveled faster than we could. What had been whispers in the restaurant was now a tidal wave crashing through every platform. Clara called first. Her voice was thin but steady. He tried to get into my apartment last night. I changed the locks. Good, I said. Rowan texted me only one word. Safe. She was staying at a hotel Elise arranged, far from Adrian's reach. Then Elise arrived at my door, sleeves rolled, laptop under her arm. She did not wait for coffee. We moved today. The exposure was the match, but now we build the firebreak. She spread papers across my table. Clara files for separation this morning. Rowan begins annulment proceedings. You file for dissolution with fraud as cause. 3 parallel cases, 1 strategy. Coordinated, documented, unstoppable. I stared at the stack of papers. My name, Clara's name, Rowan's name. All aligned like chapters of the same story. Will it hold? I asked. It will, Elise said. Because the truth does not need rehearsal. The day unfolded like a sequence I had already practiced in my head. Mara the lawyer joined us by video. She looked sharp, her tone sharper. We will use the footage as corroboration. Every guest is a witness. The restaurant provided full security recordings. It is airtight. By noon, Adrian's silence broke. Not with an apology. With a post. A photo of him standing by a car captioned, "Never believe everything you hear. People love drama." Within minutes, the comments filled with links to the video. Screenshots of the marriage certificates. Guests correcting him with their own words. I was there. I saw it. His denial crumbled before it could stand. Clara messaged me a screenshot of her lawyer's filing confirmation. Rowan sent one too. My own would be stamped within the hour. By late afternoon, the first reporters called. Elise intercepted them all. No comment, she repeated like a shield. The record speaks. But the world kept talking. A neighbor left flowers on my doorstep with a note. For your courage. A coworker I barely knew sent a message. You taught us to see lies in daylight. Even my mother, who had never liked Adrian, left a voicemail. I told you once that you deserved better. Now you know I was right. That night, the 3 of us met again. Not in a restaurant this time. In my apartment with simple food and too much silence. Clara placed her phone on the table face down. Rowan folded her hands in her lap, eyes still tired from travel. I keep thinking about how he managed it, Rowan said softly. The flights, the lies, the stories. How many nights did he stand in our kitchens and rehearse for the other? Clara let out a hollow laugh. And we believed. Because we wanted to. I looked at them both. Wanting love is not a weakness. But letting him continue would be. Elise joined us late, carrying folders. She placed them down like anchors. The filings are in. Judges will review. Now we prepare for the next storm, the financial audits. Men like Adrian never stop at lies about love. They leave trails in bank statements. Her certainty steadied me. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt the ground under my feet again. Before she left, Elise paused at my door. Tomorrow will not feel lighter, she warned. But it will be yours. When I finally lay down, exhaustion pressed heavy, but it was not the exhaustion of despair. It was the weight of truth settling where it belonged. I closed my eyes and let the city hum outside my window. Adrian's empire of lies had collapsed in one night. Tomorrow, the rubble would be sorted in courtrooms and bank ledgers. But tonight, I held something he could never reclaim. My story. 3 months later, the courtrooms were quiet, but the consequences were not. Adrian's name no longer opened doors. His contracts dissolved. His reputation, once polished like glass, now cut only him. Clara received her separation decree with sole custody and financial protection. Rowan's annulment was granted, the judge noting fraudulent concealment in the record. My own dissolution finalized with restitution for every cent, he had drained from my accounts. Each paper carried a weight, not just for us, but for every lie he had told. Adrian did not appear in court for the final hearings. His lawyer submitted letters. But silence does not rewrite truth. The three of us met one last time, not in anger, but in quiet solidarity. Clara had her son beside her, laughing at something on a phone. Rowan held her passport, ready to travel, ready to start again. And I held nothing but air, and for the first time that felt like freedom. Elise joined us too, smiling in that rare way lawyers do when justice lands where it belongs. You wrote the ending, she told me. Not him. Later, alone in my apartment, I stood by the window and looked out at the city lights. 4 years I had believed Adrian's schedule, his stories, his absences. I thought they were signs of ambition. They were signs of a double life. But here is the truth I want you to carry. Lies can twist themselves into cages, but cages break when you refuse to stay inside. He drained our trust, our time, our faith. We drained his illusion, not with violence, with proof, with patience, with courage that grew sharper each time he called us dramatic, jealous, or wrong. And in the end, he was none of the things he claimed. He was not a businessman on trips. He was not a husband with devotion. He was a man with secrets too weak to stand daylight. We were the daylight. Now I turn to you, the one listening, the one nodding because you have felt the sting of being dismissed, the ache of being lied to. Maybe your betrayal is not mine. Maybe your scars carry different names. But remember this. You are not foolish for trusting. The shame is not yours. And if you choose to stand in truth, you are stronger than every shadow cast against you. So tell me, have you ever uncovered a secret that changed everything? Share it. Because stories like these do not just belong to me or Clara or Rowan. They belong to anyone who refused to be small. And if you want more stories where betrayal ends in justice, where secrets collapse under proof, stay here. There are more truths to tell. Because revenge is not always fire. Sometimes it is the quiet persistence of daylight.